We wobble, we wobble. I took LSD 375 times. It's fucking hella intense, you know? You were you were really out there. There's things you don't see. And I think that it's important to see this other side of things. But it got scary.
Gary. What do you want?
What? Who the fuck is this guy?
Gary, you're gonna be a big star and you're gonna be a millionaire.
Gary's crazy. It's wild.
Gary needs to drink all the time.
Don't do it, Gary. Don't do it, Gary. Don't do it, Gary.
And like the only way that you could get away from it was to like run. Run. And the scary goes away because you're running. You know, you gotta get away. And so I did. I've been in 29 bands in my life. And as I say, as long as I can stand, I will drum. I gotta quit. All right, I just need a break. My leg is hurting. Have you seen the picture of the album cover? Oh, what can I tell you? Well, I was in Stockton. I was in the Fall of Christianity. Death's Ugly Head. Oh, the Crow Band. CRLLL. And Pavement. Okay, that's Steve Malkmus, the lead singer from Pavement. And that's me. You see, my job, in a sense, was to wreak fucking havoc. And I think I did a real good job of it.
Wasn't the question you were asking?
Gary's story is pretty unique. Hi, I'm Steve Malkmus from Pavement and Gary's cohort in the band. In our early years, he recorded us, and we toured with Gary.
In rock and roll, Gary's crazy character that you don't really probably see anymore. You'll probably never see a character like Gary ever again.
He made Pavement unusual, and he was kind of like the icing on the cake. And he kind of separated us from all the other bands, from the genre.
Okay, first of all, these kids, you know, I call them kids, you know. I was 40, and they were 20, and no one believed that I was the drummer in the band. So I stood out.
From his perspective, the Pavement part of his life was quite baffling.
He was amazed that after, you know, being in bands his whole life since he was a teenager, that suddenly, as he would say, now I'm in a band with a bunch of assholes, and for some reason people like it.
A lot of bands that I was in, I don't think anyone was really bad. I mean, I guess some of them were cheesy. But the first band I joined was Stockton, the Full of Christianity. We were good.
In Stockton, we'd have these kind of cool punk rock shows that really kind of changed the trajectory of music for me. And Fall of Christianity was the first time I saw Gary. I do remember this guy playing, who was a great drummer.
My boss is a Christian, and he hates me because I play with the Fall of Christianity. Feed 'em to the lions, feed 'em to the lions. I wrote that song. You see, times were upsetting because Stockton's a horrible place. It's a hellhole. There's crime here. You couldn't leave anything in your car for 5 minutes without it being stolen.
Among the businesses, lightweight cleaners, whose owners said longtime customers refused to even drive in the area because of the drug dealers and all of the prostitutes.
Okay, here's Stockton. Here's Sacramento. You're trapped in this valley. There's no way to get out. You see that? No way. No one wanted to live here. People were pissed off, so they made music.
They used to play like every one night a week at this place in Sacramento called the China Wagon, and there'd be no one there. You know, I mean, there were a lot of shows like that. So I was never, I can't say all the way into it. I was more of the girlfriend of a guy in a band.
Yeah.
Hey, you're gonna have to understand, they can't just stop.
Come over there once.
What do you want? They're, okay, well, they're filming, so shh. Sorry. Always has to be the star. Just kidding.
In Stockton, everybody looked up to Gary. Everything happened at Gary Hugg's house. We ate there, we practiced there, we listened to records there. He had very eclectic taste in music, like Jefferson Airplane, Country Joe and the Fish, and then over in New York, the Vanilla Fudge and a lot of the more garagey kind of stuff. And then there was the thing that made him different than anybody else that was happening in town was that he had his own recording studio.
When pot cost $400 an ounce, I used to get a pound a week. and basically sell it in eighths. One day I sold $4,000 worth of eighths in a day. We're making a fortune. Where do you think all this shit came from? I wanted a recording studio. I bought a bunch of speakers and a bunch of whatever I could buy. My brother has a really fancy recording studio in New York. And he came out here and helped me build it. And hooked it all up. And when it worked, it worked. When it didn't work, it didn't work. Fuck. We just figured it out.
He said, what do you think of this? And it had a generic little guy that's like, you know, he goes, I'm gonna call my studio louder than you think. What do you think? I go, oh, that's great. He was very busy, working with a lot of Stockton and kind of Valley bands for many years. I was working at this record store with a friend of mine named Scott. He wanted to record with his friend Steve, and I said, I know a guy. And I sent him to Gary Young's studio.
2 19-year-old kids came to my recording studio, and I was cheap.
When Scott and Steve first came in, they were very young. And I thought, who are these guys?
Scott is from my same suburb. It was called Murata. We went to elementary school together and probably played on soccer teams. Scott always showed an interest in music and alternative music that I shared with him.
We all kind of had the same friends. I mean, we basically grew up together. I went off to school in Arizona. I kind of formed this little band with a couple dudes. I was an urban planning student, so pavement. So I had this band, Pavement, and then I came back to Stockton, and I think that was kind of the winter or something where Steve was like, let's make a single, and I said, I've got a perfect name. So we just showed up at this like suburban house in this kind of cul-de-sac. You walk in and you just smell pot. And then there's like a chicken cooking in the fireplace. And you're like, what's going on here? And he's like, oh, this is where I barbecue. His wife Jerry was there, and they were kind of these brash New Yorkers, you know?
He liked to do handstands off the roof. You know, he had this sort of routine in a great way, you know, like dangerous, weird stuff that he could do. And he sort of was like a cat, or if there is a superhero that like gets hit by bullets and smashed and is just fine and can survive radiation or something, you know, and be the one that is maybe has an extra eye that like lives on.
We had 5 or 6 songs, and he was just going to be the engineer.
You guys, I said to them, I think this is noise. My drums were set up in there. I could play my drums right now. And they said, okay. It was just 2 guitars. What value musically is that?
I think he just was like, this is a job. These guys are paying. It sounds like not very good. And we probably never thought we'd see him again, to be honest.
On that 16-track tape machine, all the Pavement tapes are recorded on that. You can't hurt that.
She believed in me!
I think how loose it was at Gary's studio definitely helped the sound. The instruments he had, the equipment he had helped the sound. I figured out how to press and put out the single and sent it around to a bunch of distributors. I never expected anybody to like it. You started getting these orders. We made like 1,000 of them. You got written up in little cool fanzines.
Sleigh Tracks emerged in 1989, and it suddenly starts appearing in the small magazines and the fanzines. Poorly typed, photocopied, stapled together magazines circulating back and forth across America via mail ever since the early 80s and even before that. And even though Sleigh Tracks comes out in 1989, it's got this bizarre title, Sleigh Tracks, open brackets, 1933 to 1969, as if it was a compilation. They gave their names as things like Spiral Stairs and SM instead of their full names. No one quite knew what they were like. And from the quality of the recordings, there was a great deal of noise and chaos mixed in with the recordings. Pavement were one of the bands that marked quite a clear shift in what lo-fi was and what it could become. As you might imagine, it originally means low fidelity, and in that capacity the term's been around since the 60s. But it actually becomes a musical movement in the late 80s and the early 90s. It gets associated with home recording. The idea being that if you're recording at home, that your sound quality is going to be a little inferior to what you might expect in the pop studios of the day. With Pavement, rather than having a sort of innocent, naive, or a sort of quote-unquote primitive sound, they were doing it as something of a conscious strategy. Rhythms were played in a slightly sloppy way. The mixing wasn't necessarily so ideal. There was a slight craziness to the lyrics. This is what a lot of lo-fi was like.
What do you think about lo-fi recording?
I don't believe in it. I believe that you should do it as the highest quality as you can.
So were those Pavement records lo-fi records?
No. Why should I make it shitty on purpose?
Yeah, I think it is lo-fi. I put noise and distortion intentionally overdubbed, like Scott had a little handheld micro cassette that he would record weird stuff on, and I had a Casio keyboard that when its batteries would get low, it'd make the screeching noise. So I think we were sort of into roughing it up and ambient sounds, and what we ended up with probably wasn't what we thought we heard. Because if also you have very little idea of how equipment works and the freaks are running the asylum in the studio, it's gonna end up sounding unprofessional.
Also, Sleigh Tracks was mastered terribly because I just sent the masters to the company who pressed it, and they don't care. But when I got it back, I thought oh, it just sounds really tinny, and I just thought, all right, whatever. It's We're never going to do anything else. I don't care.
Pavement were considered to be slackers, be these kind of unkempt, lackadaisical artists with an ironic, slightly surreal take on everyday life. They would look quite the opposite of a rock star at that time. And you could hear that slackness perfectly in their approach to music. Pavement are simply one of the biggest influences on the indie rock sound of the 90s and the 2000s and beyond. And they're one of the first bands that give a whole generation its sound.
This guy from Drag City Records, who actually ordered a bunch of the Slate Tracks singles for his record shop, he said he was going to start a label and wanted us to do a single. We recorded it at Gary's, but he doesn't play on it.
He was just the producer, I guess. And then for our third record, which was called Perfect Sound Forever, we thought we could actually use him as a drummer again, and he does a really great job.
We'd love to do rolls. Very, very frenetic. You're like, man, you know, he's never gonna come back and get on time, and which was great for our songs because it kind of added this weird element to it. You're like, is it gonna fall apart or is it gonna get back there? So yeah, we did that, and then we got offered to play live. We were like, let's take Gary since he's already drummed on these songs. I mean, Gary was probably like in our ear saying, take me. And then Bob came and played with us live over on the East Coast.
I was a fan of the band and incredibly good friends with Malcolmus, and I sort of volunteered to be the tour manager. And I'd asked Steven a lot about Gary. Steven would be like, he's a great guy, he's weird, he's out there, like, he's a pretty amazing guy. Like, he is kind of a fuck up, but like, there's nobody else like him. Our first tour ever was just a handful of shows on the East Coast in August of 1990. A few days before the tour ever started, we went up to Mamaroneck, New York, where Gary's parents lived, and the last conversation I had with Steve, he said, get a couple of drums just to keep time. I said, well, I don't know how to play drums, you know? Well, Gary's a bit shaky. I mean, what do you mean by shaky? He says sometimes he's just too drunk to play. Essentially, I got hired to be in the band from a musical perspective, sort of as an insurance policy to make sure that time was being kept.
I remember the first tour, Gary came from California, and he had, like, drank too much red wine, like a lot too much. And I remember him being really sick on the floor, sleeping. But then I also saw his sort of superhuman, again, going back to the surviving the apocalypse or radiation. You know, he was back again from death's door, seeming he could not even move.
First time I've ever seen what an alcoholic really looks like was like that first tour.
I'm sorry, it's Bob's father. I'm stopping right now and we're going to have a cocktail. I don't know where you are, Bob, but let's go have one.
I remember one of the first shows we did at Maxwell's. You know where that is in New Jersey? I said, you know, I'm really thirsty. So I said, fuck this. And I got up and I went over to the bar and I got myself, oh, I better make it a double. I go back behind the drum kit and this disrupted the entire thing because, you know, I was supposed to be drumming at the time.
Gary was just like out there with his vodka and just kind of dancing around and doing all these crazy things.
There's a bar over there.
So it was kind of good that Bob was there, I guess.
All right, well, I beg you guys to buy me booze, and you haven't done it, so...
In a lot of ways, I didn't really think of it as erratic behavior at the time. We were young. This was our first kind of time we were playing shows, and everything was so exciting. Gary's whole vibe didn't really bother me because it kind of just, everything just kind of worked.
I never really thought it was ever going to go anywhere, to be honest. And then they started doing larger shows out here, and, you know, sure enough, one thing led to another.
I think whatever they had at the start was kind of a fact-finding mission for Gary. So if you take Perfect Sound Forever and Sleigh Tracks and all those early recordings, I don't think he took the band particularly seriously. But then I think as the years went by and we progressed towards Slanted and Enchanted, that he became a huge artistic contributor to Pavement.
For Slanted and Enchanted, Gary told us that he had just recorded a metal band. You know, he had EQ'd the board, it was ready to go, and just confident that it was gonna sound slammy. Almost all those songs were Gary and I playing first, and Scott would be running the tape machine. I would just sort of talk him through the songs, and then sometimes there would be a free part, you know, where I'd just say, like, go, you know, like, rock. And so that's when he could do his triplets or weird stuff on these pretty simple 4/4 songs. Or like Summer Babe, you know, a famous Pavement song. He, you know, he gets to like just play whatever the hell he wants.
Ice, baby. I see your girlfriend like she was eating her fingers like they're just another meal. It went dun 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 dun. If you listen to it close, on the hi-hat.
From a musical perspective, not only was he a brilliant drummer, but he was kind of different than the other drummers from the genre. Just the drum tracks on Slanted and Enchanted, like, they weren't made by a guy my age. They're made by somebody who was completely influenced by a totally different generation of music.
That one.
What is it, a mushroom?
Well, but it's that. It's an impossible place. This bridge could not exist in real life. I like this guy as an artist. If you listen to my favorite records, like Yes, the drumming is just incredible. You know, Bill Bruford. He played beats that, for the life of me, I can't figure it out.
I can say similarities rather than influence. It's easier for me. I like the Verlaines and the Chills and the Bats, I guess. And the Queen and College Dwarfs.
And we're also really influenced by a song called I'm Telling You Now by Herman's Hermits. Have you ever heard that song? I'm telling you now.
I've never heard that. Oh, man. See, Gary's sitting in 1977 while most of the rest of us are, at least in this decade. At least in the 90s, like, edging towards them.
What's on my shirt? Oh, it's just an old Yes shirt. I'm a big Yes fan.
His musical contribution on record and live was, he was very unique. And so I think they made really strange and kind of interesting music from the start.
Around the time that Slanted and Enchanted was recorded, I was given a cassette of the songs and really liked them, and was asked shortly after that to play bass with the band, which I was very psyched to do.
I saw him in the audiences at some of our shows. He was also on a learning curve, which was just beginning. So he was in the right spot, you know, like he had just started playing bass, I think.
I had been prepped by Steve about Gary. He's this guy that played in all these crazy bands in Stockton. He did acid 365 times in 1969 when he was 16. Hearing something like that makes you go like, Jesus Christ, you know, what's this guy gonna be like? The nice thing is that he was like a completely normal, gentle person.
Ah! Ah! Ah!
Let's scare the children.
Back in 90, 91, we received a copy of Slanted Enchanted from the guys. It became like our most listened to record in the office. It never left the cassette deck. It wasn't even so much that, I mean, the songs were incredible, but it was the variety of songs, the way that it all came together cohesively in this really messy but like beautiful kind of way. I think for us, it was just one of the more exciting things we'd heard in a long time. I had signed Superchunk and Dust Devils and Railroad Jerk, a group from Scotland named Teenage Fan Club that we had immediate success with. That really helped put us on the map. We were kind of getting an identity for ourselves at that point. So when the Slanted cassette kind of went across our desk, I literally remember the day. I remember saying, whatever we do, we have to find a way to work with these guys, because it was that good. It was this incredible piece of magic. And I remember Steve saying that the reason why he signed to Matter was because Matter had a fax machine. I guess we seemed pro. I don't think they had enormous commercial aspirations, and neither did we. We weren't looking to be a big giant record company. It was more of like a clubhouse, you know. It was a place where we could be around our friends and be part of a scene and help feed that scene. It was friends, it was people who were into cool shit. It was, you know, finding out about music via fanzines and college radio and going to shows. After we signed Pavement, that cassette had made the rounds amongst the cognoscente or the tastemakers and people in the know who had either received a cassette or had received a copy of the cassette. It floated around to various different people. It was like a bootleg demo cassette. Before we had a release date, we got word that Spin Magazine was going to review the record. They were a commercial magazine, not a fanzine at all. Something that you found in newsstands everywhere, who mostly only wrote reviews for major label records. And the first lead review was this, you know, 5-star review for Slanted and Enchanted. They reviewed the demo cassette of Slanted and Enchanted. It was the original, you know, handmade cassette that Scott Camberg had been sending around. It was unheard of that like a mainstream magazine like that would review anything that wasn't already like a commercially available record, something that was actually coming out that you could actually buy. By the time we released that record, we had a ton of orders, you know, in our little office, which was You know, it was tiny. And we filled it up with pavement records, literally to the ceiling, covering our desks. We couldn't even find our phones. That was sort of the beginning of a pretty big ride for those guys, and for us as well. I guess everyone has a different perspective on when things get serious or when things are being taken seriously by other people, but for me that had to do with press.
With Slanted and Enchanted, Pavement really, truly explode. They start getting called the new Nirvana. There's a lot of fuss over them on both sides of the Atlantic.
One trick night before you taste, and in my bed at the break of dawn. She shivered like a hazy sprite in.
I think it was like only a week or two after I'd met them in New York that we started touring in Europe. That was their very first tour in Europe, and they were still fairly unknown, but also there was like a big buzz around them. Everybody wanted to see him, and all the shows were packed, and the guys did not know what happened to them.
You know, he was famous. We were on the street in Scotland, and these people would come up to him. I mean, it kind of blew me away.
By that point, Gary would have become more of a, like, WTF factor in our band. You know, he's an old, like, hippie playing with these seemingly clean-cut kids, so it was quite a contrast.
I was dressed up.
He also was into a certain type of showmanship that in our scene was not really done. Like, you know, no one at that time, no one would, you know, throw a stick up in the air and catch it and then stand up, like, you know, because we were all trying to get away from the metal bands that we listened to in the 80s or whatever. And he loved doing that kind of stuff.
That was something, it was classic progressive rock extravagance in how a band should be presented, mixed with like some sort of unconfident dudes that were worried about being cool or something, or just were so nervous that they couldn't move or had to look down at their instruments because they couldn't play or had never had a like PA wedge in front of them.
Whereas I think we were shy at first. I think the looseness of Gary's life probably translated into our live shows.
Well, I brought some semblance of order to it.
Did you also bring some disorder?
Absolutely. That was my job. Whatever I could do to make the fucking shambles out of the whole thing.
Gary was allowed to do whatever he wanted to do whenever he wanted to do it. I mean, Steven and Scott were not disciplinarians, and they weren't the kind of guys that fired people, so they didn't know how to control Gary.
All right, going back there? Do they have drugs back there or something?
Did you ever see the movie Rollerball?
Game! This wasn't meant to be a game!
That's what I want. There's this frantic game going on. And I want that. I like that. I want the shit to be like that.
He had this mindset that you had to create a certain amount of tension within the band in order for the band to be great. In the case of all of us, is that we didn't want that tension. Only he did.
Yeah, this song's a social commentary about dressing. I was dressed for success. Look at the way these assholes are dressed.
One time, I think it was in Atlanta, I think we were having kind of a tough show because I think it was a tough night for Gary. At one point, I stopped hearing a lot of drums and turned around, and Gary had fallen backwards, and the stage didn't have a wall behind it, it just had a curtain. I think he fell probably around 8 feet. He climbed back up and was somehow able to finish the show. It might have been entertaining for some people to see that happen, but it wasn't a good show, and we were worried about him.
Vodka
Let Gary sing.
and grapefruit juice.
All I know is my job is to entertain people, and that's what I try to do.
All fame and no fortune. All fame and no fortune.
I try.
He thirsted to get out from behind his drum kit and make sure that the fans knew who he was. So he would dress in very loud and bright colors.
He'd wear like bright shirts or shorts with a tie. He wore topsiders a lot, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, they're here. Well, there's thousands of them, but I mean, it depends on how stupid you want me to look, you know.
He loved every second of being celebrated and famous. I think all the rest of us never wanted to be rock stars and never really felt like we were at any point, and he always wanted to be one. He wanted to be noticed. Later on in the game, he would introduce himself to every single person that came to pavement shows. Sometimes that got like pretty extraneous and exhausting because there, sometimes it'd be 1,200 people.
At first, he would just kind of stand outside the shows, welcoming people to the show. And everybody was just like, I didn't realize the homeless guy outside was the drummer. He loved kind of creating that tension with people. And I think that kind of translated into, I'm gonna hand things out.
There was carrots one day, celery one day, pennies, whatever. It got harder and harder to make something to distribute to the crowd. We're playing with Sonic Youth. They draw 5,000 people. Thurston Moore was the only one who would help me. He helped me get 50 pounds of potatoes and about 100 packages of the gravy. And we made mashed potatoes and gravy.
Gary does whatever he wants on stage and before the show. He's his own entity. We let him go out on his own. It's almost like Gary Young and Pavement.
Vegetables.
Vegetables.
Yeah, I was considering vegetables. I haven't got it together yet, but what I'm going to do.
Losing his inspiration.
I'm not losing my inspiration. Come on.
He's just in deep
the
thought.
cheese was pretty good.
Yeah, he passed out cheese the other night in Australia, and then straws the night before that, and then for some absurd reason passed out week-old ticket stubs in Sydney. So he's hit or miss.
The worst one.
Yeah, sometimes he has a good one, and sometimes he has a bad one. Hopefully,
there's only so many things in the world.
We don't know really why he gives away these things. I think it's, I don't know, maybe you should explain that to me. Why do you give away things? Because I would like to know.
I don't really know. I don't know. It's
a way to calm your nerves.
I think that it has something to do with that, yeah.
Or to just
I'm sure that it's attention getting to some degree. Well, I'm being honest.
Well, compost is really important. You know, take all your vegetable refuse, like bacon peels and stuff like that, and put it in this little pile that turns into straight dirt.
It was fucking hilarious. You know, he was one of the funniest guys you ever met. And when he was on fire on the drums, there was nobody better. And those shows were just incredible. Even if it was just a couple songs, you know, like we felt like we were kind of invincible.
There are some times where you'd play with him and you'd be like, I'm not aware of like a better rock and roll drummer in the world right now than this guy when he's on. Okay, because not only could he play the drums, but he put on a hell of a show.
Times when he would stop drumming and I'd turn around and he would be there doing a headstand. And people loved it. And it might not have been the best thing for the song, but if he got out of his handstand and then hopped back behind the drums and the next song was great, then I loved that, you know.
Well, I was always a gymnast. At the YMCA, I won the all-around championship when I was 12. And the thing was, Malcolmus had a song, a solo song, and I didn't know what to do. So I stood on my head. When I fell down, they didn't give a flying fuck about Malcolmus's song. All they cared about was when I fell down. Boy, did that piss him off.
Sometimes I liked it. You know, it was really a cool look when I was playing like a quiet song and then he's up there. I close my eyes and sing the songs with feeling. Sometimes not, sometimes so, but I'm not like, you're ruining a magic moment where people should be lighting candles, you know, like just a gig, everyone's free. Sometimes, yeah, it seemed like he was forcing the issue or, you know, didn't have to do that every night. But usually the feeling was like kind of joyous and crazy, you know, and fun.
We all loved Gary. We loved being in a band with him, and he basically taught me everything I know about drums, and he taught me a lot of things that were wrong. One thing he taught me, which was crazy, was that you should hit the drums as hard as you can at all times.
Hit the drums as hard as you can every time.
And I was so ignorant, and he's telling me what to do, that I'm like going through incredible amounts of drum skins. And drum skins aren't cheap.
You know, everybody can do this. But not everybody can do this. I got my first drum set when I was 11. I realized that was what I was going to do. I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
How did you feel?
Ecstatic.
My brother is what you call hyperactive, or at least as a youth, that's what you would diagnose him as today. At one time, we were in the same bedroom together on bunk beds. He would habitually, like, on his pillow, be going, whoa, 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 like this. And of course, I couldn't sleep because he's going woof, 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 woof on the pillow all the time. He's trying to self-stimulate himself. My mother always told how he broke her rib twice, once from inside the womb, and then once later on, like jumping on her as a baby, which gives you some idea of how hard to handle he was.
What he was like as a kid? Yeah. Wild, absolutely crazy. He just climbed up on everything and swung. His father and I always were astounded that we managed to keep him alive.
My mom was very creative. Like, for instance, she made all these, which depicts Steinberg guitar, Oakland Raiders, barbershop I was scared of. I was always scared of the police and the drum. The first band I played in, we had a rented drum and a garbage can and a piece of sheet metal. So that band didn't have a name, but the next band was called the Drakers, which was short for drug takers.
My impression is that he has always had a little bit of a chemical imbalance in his brain. The implication is that there's a lot of like adrenaline and stuff, constantly flowing through your system. And I guess in an attempt to quiet his mind, he started getting into drugs of various kinds and, a lot of marijuana, and eventually, hard things like heroin and so on that mostly were depressants, somehow like calmed you down. Because I think it must have been very energetically demanding to be him.
Gary Young was always very, I have to say, very popular. And I was really interested. We were definitely smoking a lot of pot back then. My mother would go away a lot. I had a lot of crazy parties at my house. And one thing led to another, and we kind of got together.
If you took drugs back then, you were considered crazy. 16 years old, I get arrested for 4 grams of hash in a pipe. So they locked me up in a cycle ward for 14 days for observation. And they gave me a clean bill of mental health. I think I got arrested for pot 5 times. And they said, this is out of hand. We're sending him to go away. I was to go to jail for 3 years in Attica. Attica is a real prison. It's no joke. So I says, fuck this, I ain't going there. So I stole my mother's United Airlines credit card, took my girlfriend's grandmother's car, and then we used my mother's credit card to fly to California.
This was all very out of the norm for me, I have to say. But I did it. So we flew to San Francisco on his mother's credit card. We were young. We didn't have a lot of money. My family basically told me they weren't gonna help me. If I wanted to, I could come home. It was that kind of thing. So we managed on our own, and we struggled. We got food stamps, and I can't remember how else we made it, but we managed. We managed. And then I got a job at the waterbed place.
Waterbeds are what you like. It's waterbeds we've got. Ready? Soft sides, hard sides, 2 beds, day beds.
And somewhere along the line, Gary did come to work at the waterbed company too. And The company was hit with all kinds of problems, and they decided to relocate to Stockton. And Gary and I came.
You ready? Okay. Every time I entered the United States from Europe, I had to fill out this form. Do you have a communicable disease, physical or mental disorder, or are you a drug abuser or addict? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Have you ever been arrested or convicted for an offense or crime involving moral turpitude or violation related to a controlled substance, or been a controlled substance trafficker, which I was, of course, or are you seeking entry to engage in criminal or immoral activities? Yes. Who on earth would answer yes to any of these questions? I mean, come on.
What's on this? It stains on the couch, Gary. Oh, yo. I ain't playing if I ain't drinking.
Yeah, sometimes when both of us were wasted, but him usually more wasted, you know, you could be like, just go back there and just play the songs. Like, let's get through this.
There's some nights where he would just be so out of it that basically you look over and it was like a guy drumming with like 2 number 2 pencils. I mean, you couldn't hear a thing he was doing. That's, you know, that was kind of a nightmare for me because that meant that I kind of had to be the drummer.
Gary was a decent drinker, and yeah, I mean, he could outdrink people, but more specifically, he usually outdrank himself.
Gary, out of curiosity, so what are you drinking?
Vodka and sun-kissed orange juice. I can drink a quart of whiskey a day. Easy. I didn't drink anybody under the table.
It's no secret. And, you know, we did a lot of stuff along the way to try to stop it. I was, you know, probably the stable force of the two. Not probably, I was. And I did worry about it. I do worry about it.
I stopped counting the rehabs at about 15. But I strongly suggest, especially if kids watch this, don't get on this crap. It's only gonna mess you up. Please don't do it. Because I'll tell you at the end, you'll be sorry.
Are you sorry that you did?
I'm not sorry. I did. I'm just telling somebody else they're gonna be sorry. Yeah, I'm a hypocrite, you see? But at least I admit it, you know?
In the early days, I think he was 90% there when it came to playing drums. As time went on, he became more like 50%.
I mean, I used to do shit like I need a drink. Can anybody out there get me a drink?
We didn't know how to deal with it. And we weren't exactly saints either. Plenty of behavior that I think was substance-based that I sort of regret. I guess I just realized pretty soon he's a proud and stubborn guy, and interventions and that kind of stuff aren't gonna work.
He was my responsibility, okay? And it was a challenge, especially traveling around the world and entering countries and going through customs and stuff like that, I would go in with him. I would often carry a small traveler-sized bottle of scope so he could freshen his breath. Pretty quickly, he realized he could trust me and that I would take responsibility for him. It was just a really arduous and demanding time for me, and I was only 25, 26 years old, so I can't imagine what it was like for somebody who took far worse care of themselves. He caused me a lot of stress and apprehension because I loved him, and I also felt like, is it the right thing to be doing to have this guy out on the road? You just sort of hope for the best every day, He made it.
Don't jump. Don't do it. Save yourself. It's gone.
Don't leave me hanging.
I'm not gonna. What am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do? Need more beer.
Oh, this is beer.
Be back in a minute.
He's the greatest drummer that we could ever have,
Oh, that's totally true.
I mean, you know that, Dan.
Anybody that sees him play knows it.
He's he's amazing.
I mean, everyone will say, oh, he missed a few beats here and there, but nobody ever says to get rid of Gary. Nobody will ever say that, no matter what he does up there. So, that's great. It's a sign of a true pavement member. You're a lifer.
This is anxiety medicine. I have blood clots in both my legs. That's why I'm having trouble getting around. Oh, I have scoliosis. My driver's license says I'm 5'11". I'm 5'5". My new ramp for my disabilities.
Gary is one of the reasons why Pavement got noticed, and one of the reasons why we were liked by critics and fans. So we became a worldwide thing, and Gary got to experience all of that.
When did you realize that Pavement was a big deal?
After I left. Remember that the band was 3 people up until Eyeball and Bob. Malcolmus wrote the songs. Canberg did all administration, financing, or whatever, and I put the studio up and drummed. And I thought that this was an equal division of work.
Gary firmly believed, albeit inaccurately, that he was getting ripped off, because he felt like if his picture was on the cover of like the NME or the Melody Maker in London, and he was doing interviews on radio stations, doing all this press, that meant that you were basically like on your way to being Robert Plant.
I think he also thought, in a weird, warped way, that the show was about him. People are coming to see me, not you guys. It's like, I don't know why he would think that. He wasn't writing the songs, he wasn't singing the songs, he was just doing headstands and passing out shit. And there was some tension about that for sure.
Everything was fairly transparent. There just was no money from record sales, and everything we were making was from touring that we split evenly. Maybe we weren't getting as much as we could. We definitely weren't, like, stealing from him. There's nothing to steal,
We knew that there was some major label interest after we signed the band. The A&R Sharks or whatever, they would be around at some of the shows. But the band wasn't really having any of it. They weren't too interested in it.
Here, I'll set this up for you.
There you go. In honor of the remarkably successful Drag City Showcase.
The stupidest thing I saw last night was on the CBGB's list. There was like this thing, you know, like for the guest list for the band.
Yeah.
But then there was also another thing for industry. It says industry.
Ooh.
Yep. It was lame.
Back then, you know, there was a big ethos to not selling out and doing it for cash. That was going against what the scene was all about.
We kind of came up in this time that was very independent leaning with music. A lot of our favorite bands were not on major labels, and so in our minds, the major label was kind of the enemy. And the stuff we needed to do, we didn't really need a major label.
Gary wanted to sell out. He wanted to be rich and famous, and you know, whereas Malkmus seemed to be doing everything he could to stop that from happening, which turned out to be the optimal strategy, because once the people in the record companies kind of realized that this was the forbidden fruit, that it's the thing they couldn't have, that just made them want it all the more. My dad was a businessman, and he would look at any kind of situation like this and say, gosh, this is making some money. What does that mean? What's your percent? Do you get publishing? You know, blah, blah, blah. And we had all these discussions, and, you know, too numerous to mention. And I probably thought they should have a record deal. Take the money.
Played that record, and like I ran around and I was flying up like a table. You know, it probably helped.
He was really being advised by his brother to like get the guys to sign on the dotted line.
I'm filming.
I was around many times when Gary would relate that to us, and we would shake our heads and say, no, you know, we don't need to do it that quickly. We don't, you know, we should take it slower. And I think that led to that clandestine meeting.
We had a show at Maxwell's in New Jersey. We did a sound check, and Gary didn't show up. And then it was kind of getting time to the show, and we get this call from Chris Lombardi from Matador saying, hey, you know, Gary's passed out in the office of, like, the head of Columbia. He'd gone there and said, I'm Gary from Pavement, let's do a deal. I want $1 million.
Gary's story at the time was they, quote, had a briefcase on the desk with $1 million in it, which seemed like complete fiction to me and just hokum. For us, he was just like, at that point, he was so far away from like the way the band thought philosophically that it was disconcerting.
You know, I said to these guys, $1 million is $1 million. That's 250 grand a piece. And they said no, and they were right, because Schanberg managed the company extremely well.
It was annoying. I was like, you know, you don't speak for the band, Gary. That's not your place to go poking around for deals. But, you know, Gary was right. There was certainly potential of that avenue to explore and to maybe do a major label. But at that time, you know, I would have thought that they wouldn't have been the right place for the band.
You know, it just got ugly, and I say ugly. It just, you know, when you start dealing with money, it was right after that things started going downhill with him and Pavement.
Gary had decided that he would make a bunch of demands. He wanted health insurance coverage, and he wanted a hell of a lot of money.
My brother and my father and everybody wanted me to have a contract. You know, this is a business. You gotta have some kind of contract. And I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. It was a drag.
All of his ideas were so far-fetched and so preposterous and so off base in terms of how much money he wanted that we were all kind of taken aback and sort of stunned. And I remember, even though like I'd been the best man at his wedding and been a dear friend of his for a long time and adored and loved him, I found myself in the position of being like, it's never gonna happen. Just because of who you are or what your needs are in life, you know, you're definitely never gotten ripped off. You're not getting ripped off now, but we're not gonna give you special things to be in the band.
So he just said, well, then I quit. And I knew that he didn't want to quit, but I think Steve was relieved.
It was nice in a way that he just was like done with us. He was probably just sick of dealing with me. It was a good time to part ways.
I remember going out to his house and talking with him and Jerry and just saying like, listen, man, I think he was saying like, yeah, I didn't really mean it. And I was just like, you've become a liability to us. And I think Jerry understood where we were coming from, but Gary took it hard.
I think that was the time Pavement, you know, they had risen above where they were, but now, at this time, they were even going more. So the timing.
The New York Times described my next guest as half rock and roll and half circus of the absurd and all attitude. Their latest release, the critically acclaimed CD called Crooked Rain, Crooked Rain. Please welcome Pavement.
Post Gary, we recorded more records. We went on more tours. We had a lot of great shows. I mean, I would say that just like immediately post Gary, it was strange not having him around. Fortunately, I also really liked Steve West.
Have you met Steve West yet?
Yes, I did.
He was a friend of friends, and he had a rehearsal space, and I really super nice guy. And so, you know, he was just in the right place at the right time in a certain way. I rehearsed with him once. I'm like, you're the drummer now.
Steve West, although nowhere near as flamboyant a drummer or performer as Gary, was also very, very solid. 98% of the time he'd be on his game, as opposed to Gary, who would be very 50-50. It was a completely different band.
Together. When we toured England after that, like English people, they would shout, "Gary, where's Gary?" Like during shows, which was a bit humiliating for Steve West. I mean, people got quite used to Steve West, and but they didn't forget Gary because he was quite a character.
It was very hard for Gary. It was hard on Gary. And it did take years, I would say years.
When Gary Young quit Pavement, he went back to his house and he kind of hunkered down for a while, and he called me up and I went out there, and he just wanted to tell stories. And so I'd go out there every day and we would jump on the trampoline, do some gardening.
I was an avid gardener, and we loved it. All these walnut trees you see around here, I planted all of them. By the refrigerator light, in the middle of the night, I get up to take my pills. Don't wanna turn on the regular light, for fear I won't get back to sleep. When I finally fall asleep, it's not for very long, and I always wake up in a sweat. I'm a man full of dreams, and I wish I could have them, but nightmares is all I'm gonna get. When morning arrives, I'm barely alive, but I pull on my pants anyway. Time to face a new day, it's gonna take me a while. Be noon before I can smile.
One time, Gary said, "Hey, I'm doing music again." And I go, what? He goes, I've got some songs. Okay.
Plant man knows that the plants will grow. Plant man knows that the plants will grow. Plant man knows that the plants will grow. Plant man knows.
Plant man, I play all the instruments. And then I have friends that play. Eric and Kelly.
Gary called me up. He said, I need your help. I need you to get over here as soon as you can, right? He had already started Plant Man, and so I helped him finish that. Abbo, who was the president of Big Cat, the English record company for Pavement, Gary sent that to him. He loved it, and he wanted to put that record out on Big Cat.
The record was supposed to be called Hospital for the Chemically Insane, but that was too long. So I just put it hospital.
The Plant Man. He's the Plant Man.
Before we knew it, we were going to New York to do a Plant Man video.
Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth calls me up and says there's a director and he wants to make a video.
We didn't even know what it was going to be like. That he was going to dress up in the green suit. Thurston was going to be a tree. It was a lot of fun. And then they debuted it on MTV.
Gary Young is the drummer for Pavement. This is off his debut solo album, which came out last week, called Hospital for the Chemically Insane. Take it away, Gary.
Plant man knows that the plants will grow. Plant man knows that the plants will grow. Plant man knows that the plants will grow. Plant man knows. Plant man.
That was such a funny, great song. I liked it, everybody liked it. I was really happy for him. They made a really funny video. And so it got a little bit of like sort of viral relative for the time, you know?
Is this Robert Plant? What's that? Oh, check it out, buddy. That's the thing I always play on the drums. I can play that, yeah.
I'll tell you something right now. That asshole couldn't play that drum riff. I'm telling you, it ain't an easy drum riff. But I think any publicity is good publicity. For instance, did I tell you about this? This is Rockin' On magazine. And they're apparently the Rolling Stone of Japan. So anyway, when I left Pavement, readers of this magazine were quite upset and demanded I communicate with them. And the way they decided to communicate was by me giving Ann Landers type advice columns. So I took it seriously.
こんにちは、ギャリーさん。私は結婚して10年になる。
One girl says, I'm married, I have a boyfriend, and I'm having an affair with my boss. What should I do?
どうしたらいいでしょう?
I said to her, you know, let him off slow. Get rid of the boyfriend and go to a marriage counselor.
Did they like the advice?
Yeah. They like my advice.
Things started opening up for us as far as playing some decent-sized shows, like the Palace in Los Angeles. And we thought, wow, you know, we're starting to get some traction. Big Cat said the record was selling well. You know, when you have an independent record, it's selling like 20,000, 23,000 copies, you know, in a few weeks and stuff like that. It's pretty rocking. So we were on our way.
Take a good look and listen. Hospital may be the next big thing to hit the music world. These guys from Stockton, of course, world famous as a breeding ground for hit acts, are about to join the mega successful Lollapalooza tour.
You have no idea how jazzed we are about it.
Don't let his name fool you. Gary Young is 42 years old, ancient in the alternative rock scene, but every bit in tune with what sells today.
And then we played Lollapalooza.
I don't know how we got part. I think Scott got it for us. I don't remember if we were any good, but I had a great time.
Birds in traffic, wanna do a backflip, trampoline, what a scene, bounce the bird from...
They brought Gary in on a stretcher. Outdoors. It's like 100 degrees. It was pretty cool.
I thought we played a really strong set, and I think that the band was in good shape. But we were trying to get a tour, and it just didn't. It didn't happen for us. You know, we played in Boston. That gig was a disaster. We got into like the second song, and he fell off the drum stool right in the middle of the song, then tried to get back on it and fell back off it again. So it was an issue. Our second record was done. Big Cat was going to put it out, and we had a meeting, Gary and I, in New York with Big Cat, and he was drinking the whole time. It was just kind of a fiasco. And I saw those guys looking at each other, and I thought, wow, this thing's not going to happen, and it didn't. That was it, because it's just too risky.
Yeah. Were you upset with Gary?
Very, very pissed off. We had a shot. I said, fuck, all you had to do is shut up, and we could have the record out. But then after a very short while, even while I was still in New York, I was just like, it's just, Gary's just Gary. And part of that is why it is what it is, and why it came out the way it did. Sometimes people have a premonition of who they are when they're really young, and he and I have had conversations about that, and I think he's well aware at a very young age that he's going to be exactly what he was going to be, and that's it. But if he would have been more serious about who he was, I probably wouldn't have been as serious about him. I probably would have never known him.
Now, Phil Donahue was great. This is my name. Let's go back out to the audience there. Houston, what's your...
Stockton was like not the place to be punk rock or to even be arty. People hated us, man. These guys were assholes to us punks every day, and we were taking up their space. The thing that I like that Gary did is he made a whole bunch of assholes around in my local town go, how the fuck did that happen? And that means a lot to me. It's emotional. Gary, man. He did it. I didn't know this was gonna happen. Can you believe it, though? Can you believe it?
If I hadn't have left Pavement, there would be no Gary Young solo records. There would have never been any Plant Man. I'm proud of Plant Man.
So all in all, it was a good thing.
Well, not monetarily.
We're not rich by any means, but there's certainly, nothing reasonable that we don't have. And, when we started getting Pavement money, I was totally blown away. Totally blown away. I'm still blown away, to tell you the truth. And it's not the amount of money, it's the fact that those guys in Pavement have always done Gary right. And to this day, we still get money. So whatever we thought was certainly not the way it is.
Once we started making, more proper records, I guess you'd call them, and we'd tour with Steve West, and we became more of a band. And then we broke up. And then we've become a much bigger band over time. Much bigger than we ever were perceived when we were around.
There's a lot of hurt probably in Gary's mind about us, but I had a lot of good times with him, listening to him talk about music, and some of the concerts we played were like super magical. I'm really glad he was there with us.
Why do you think you've stuck with him over the years?
I'm a glutton for punishment. No, because I love him.
What did you say?
I was a glutton for punishment.
No, because she's a sweetheart.
Good answer.
And if it weren't for her, I wouldn't be alive.
He's like my son. We don't have any kids. I always tell everyone I have one big kid at home.
All right, what else can we amuse these people with, dear? We want everybody to be happy, happy. Everybody to be happy. Continue. We want everybody to be happy. We want no one to be sad. We'd like you to come see the band play, because the band plays fun songs. Please be happy, happy. Please be happy for us. Let's be happy for the standings. Let's our football team play and win. Please be happy. Let's all be happy. Please be happy, don't be sad. Please be happy, don't be sad. Please be happy for us. Let's be happy. Let's be happy. Please be happy for us. Be happy. Let's be happy. Please be happy. Please be happy for us. Let's be happy.
Plant man knows that the plants will grow. Plant man knows that the plants will grow. Plant man knows that the plants will grow. Plant man knows. Plant Plant man knows where the plants will go. Plant man knows that the plants will grow. Plants don't know when the plants will go. Plant man knows if the plants will grow. Plant man. Plant man. Plant man knows if the